The cold night air hit me as I stepped out of my little shop, locking the door behind me. The closed sign swayed gently, catching the faint glow of the street lamp above. At just 25, running this shop had become my entire life. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, a symbol of the hard work and dreams I refused to give up on. As I turned to leave, I heard a crash from the alley beside my store. My instincts sharpened immediately. It wasn't unusual for stray cats to knock over trash bins, but this was different. There was a voice, sharp and filled with alarm. "No! Stop!" The words stopped me in my tracks. My chest tightened as I peered into the narrow alley. The dim light revealed a young woman struggling to pull her arm free from a man's grip. Her bag was on the ground, its contents scattered. As she tried to push him away, something inside me kicked in, a need to act. I wasn't a hero or a fighter, but leaving her wasn't an option. "Hey!" I shouted, stepping closer. "What's going on here?" The man turned to me, his face shadowed, his grip on the woman tightening. "This doesn't concern you. Walk away," he growled. My pulse quickened, but I didn't back down. "Let her go," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady. For a moment, he looked at me like he was sizing me up, deciding if I was a threat. Then, with a scowl, he released her arm. "Fine. Not worth the trouble." He shot me one last glare before turning and walking away. The woman staggered slightly, clutching her arm where he'd grabbed her. I stepped forward cautiously, my hands raised in reassurance. "Hey, are you okay?" She nodded shakily, brushing her dark hair out of her face. "Yeah, I think so. Thank you. I didn't know what to do. Do you need me to call someone? Family, maybe?" She hesitated, glancing down at her scattered belongings. "No, it's fine. I'll be okay." "Really? Thank you. I don't even know your name." I smiled faintly. "I'm Ryan. I run the shop over there." I gestured toward the corner. "I'm Claire," she said softly, her voice still unsteady. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." I crouched down, helping her gather her things. "Well, Claire, I'm just glad you're safe. It's late, though. Are you sure you're okay to get home?" She nodded again, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. "Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks again, Ryan. You didn't have to help, but you did." The encounter stayed with me long after I returned home that night. As I stared at the ceiling in my tiny apartment, I kept wondering who Claire was and what had led to that moment in the alley. But life didn't slow down for curiosity. The next morning, I opened the shop as usual. The familiar hum of the coffee machine and the soft creak of the door felt oddly comforting. But just as I was settling into the day, a sleek black car pulled up outside. The door opened, and a sharply dressed man stepped out, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. He looked out of place on my modest street, like he belonged in a corporate boardroom rather than this neighborhood. He stepped inside, scanning the room before his gaze landed on me. "Are you Ryan?" I straightened, caught off guard. "Yeah. Can I help you?" He smiled faintly, but there was a sharpness in his expression. "My name is Lucas. I believe you helped my sister last night. I'm here to thank you." I blinked, trying to process his words. "Your sister?" "Claire," Lucas said, stepping further into the shop. His voice was smooth, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. He was clearly a man used to being in control. "She told me what happened last night. You stepped in when most people wouldn't have. For that, I owe you." I shrugged awkwardly, unsure how to respond. It wasn't a big deal. I just happened to be there. His lips twitched into a faint smile, but his eyes remained serious. "Most people would have kept walking. You didn't. That makes it a big deal." I opened my mouth to reply, but he cut me off. "Look, I don't like to leave debts unpaid. Claire means the world to me, and you put yourself at risk for her. So here's the deal. Name what you want and it's yours." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "I don't want anything," I said honestly. Lucas raised an eyebrow, clearly not used to hearing that answer. "Everyone wants something. Think about it. Money, a favor, connections. I can help you." I hesitated. The truth was I did need help. My shop was barely holding on, and I was months behind on rent. But the idea of asking for a handout didn't sit right with me. I appreciate the offer, but I'm fine, I said firmly. Lucas studied me for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. But if you change your mind, here's my card. He pulled out a sleek business card and placed it on the counter. You did a good thing, Ryan. Not many people would have. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but I couldn't stop thinking about Lucas's visit. Who was this guy? His expensive car, tailored suit, and the way he carried himself. It all screamed wealth and power. And then there was Claire. Why had she been in trouble in the first place? By the time I closed up for the night, curiosity had me pulling out Lucas's card. His name was printed in bold, elegant letters, followed by CEO, Winston Enterprises. Below that was a phone number and email. I turned the card over, wondering if calling him would be a mistake. But before I could dwell on it, a knock on the glass door startled me. I turned to see Claire standing outside, her expression uncertain. I unlocked the door and opened it, surprised to see her. Claire? What are you doing here? She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder before stepping inside. I needed to talk to you, she said softly. I know Lucas came by earlier. Yeah, I said, gesturing for her to sit. He offered to help me. I didn't take it. Her eyes widened slightly. Why not? He could have fixed all your problems. I shrugged. I'm not comfortable asking for help, especially from someone I just met. Claire gave a small, understanding smile. That sounds like Lucas, always swooping in to solve everything. I studied her for a moment. She seemed calmer than last night, but there was still a shadow of worry in her eyes. Claire, what's going on? Why were you in that alley? And why didn't you want me to call the cops? Her smile faded, and she looked down at her hands. It's complicated. I waited, giving her space to speak. Finally, she sighed. Let's just say I made some bad choices, and now there are people who want to make me pay for them. I frowned, leaning forward. What kind of bad choices? Claire hesitated, then said, It's not just me they'll come after, Ryan. You got involved last night. That puts a target on you too. Her words sent a chill through me. A target? Claire, what are you talking about? She looked me in the eye, her expression serious. The guy you scared off last night? He works for someone. Someone who doesn't take kindly to people interfering. Why didn't you tell the police? I asked, my voice rising slightly. Because it won't help, she said flatly. People like him don't care about the law. The weight of her words sank in, but I refused to let fear take over. Well, I'm not just going to sit around and wait for something to happen, I said. Claire stood, her movements tense. I didn't come here to scare you, Ryan. I came to say thank you, and to warn you. Be careful. Before I could respond, she was already heading for the door. The night after Claire's visit, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go wrong. I stayed late at the shop, organizing shelves and pretending I wasn't waiting for something, or someone. The shadows outside seemed longer, darker, and every creak of the building made my nerves spike. Just as I was about to call it a night, the bell above the door jingled. My heart jumped, but the figure stepping inside wasn't a customer. It was one of the men from the alley. He stood there, smirking, his hands shoved in his jacket pockets. Nice little place you've got here, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. My throat went dry, but I forced myself to stay calm. We're closed, I said, my voice firm. He chuckled, stepping further inside. Closed? That's a shame. I was hoping we could talk. I reached behind the counter, my fingers brushing the wooden bat I kept there. I don't know who you are, and I'm not interested in talking. Get out. His smile widened, and he tilted his head. You made a mistake, kid. You should have minded your own business. Before I could react, the door burst open again, and two more men stormed in. My heart raced as they spread out, their presence suffocating. I barely had time to think before one of them lunged at me. I swung the bat, connecting with his shoulder, but another grabbed me from behind, slamming me into the counter. Pain shot through my side, and I gasped, struggling to break free. "Not so tough now, are you?" the first guy sneered, rubbing his shoulder. I kicked backward, catching the one holding me in the shin. He loosened his grip just enough for me to wriggle free. Grabbing the bat, I swung wildly, forcing them to back off. "Leave," I growled, my voice shaking. They exchanged glances, clearly sizing me up. The leader smirked. "This isn't over." With that, they turned and left, slamming the door behind them. I sank to the floor, my chest heaving. I didn't waste time. Grabbing Lucas's card from the counter, I dialed the number with trembling fingers. It rang twice before he answered. "Ryan," Lucas said, his tone sharp. "What's going on?" "I think your warning came too late," I said, my voice shaking. "Those guys from the alley? They showed up at my shop." There was a pause. Then his voice hardened. "Are you hurt?" "No, but they made it clear they're not done." "Where are you now?" "At the shop," I said, glancing at the locked door. "Stay there," Lucas ordered. "I'm sending someone over." Within 20 minutes, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside. Two men stepped out, dressed sharply but exuding an air of authority. They entered the shop, scanning the room with practiced precision. "Ryan?" one of them asked. I nodded, and he extended a hand. "Name's James. Lucas sent us to keep an eye on you." "Great," I muttered. "Because that's not going to draw attention." James smirked. "Trust me, you'll want us here. Those guys you ran into? They're not amateurs." I raised an eyebrow. "Who are they, then?" He exchanged a glance with his partner before answering. "Trouble." The next morning, Claire showed up at the shop, her expression a mix of guilt and fear. She glanced nervously at James and his partner, then back at me. "They came here, didn't they?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, crossing my arms. "Care to explain why?" She hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't tell you the whole story. Those men, they work for someone I used to be involved with. Someone dangerous." "Defined dangerous," I said, my patience wearing thin. Claire glanced at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Victor. He runs things. Illegal things." The pieces started clicking into place. "And you crossed him?" "I didn't have a choice," she said, her eyes pleading. "I left when I realized what he was really doing. But he doesn't let people leave." Lucas arrived not long after, his expression as sharp as ever. He listened quietly as Claire explained, his jaw tightening with each word. "So, this Victor guy thinks he can mess with my family?" Lucas said finally, his tone icy. "Lucas, it's not just about me," Claire said. "Ryan's involved now. They'll come after him too." Lucas's gaze flicked to me. "Then we make sure they don't." "What does that mean?" I asked warily. Lucas's lips curved into a cold smile. "It means it's time Victor learned who he's dealing with." Over the next few days, Lucas and his team worked to gather information on Victor and his men. Meanwhile, James and his partner kept a close watch on the shop, ensuring I wasn't caught off guard again. But tension hung heavy in the air. Every shadow outside felt like a threat, every passing car a potential danger. Finally, Lucas called us all together. "We're not waiting for Victor to make the next move," he said. "We're going to draw him out." "How?" I asked. Lucas's smile was sharp. "By making it clear that Ryan isn't an easy target. And neither is my family." Lucas's plan was bold, almost reckless, but it was clear he had done this before. He arranged for James and his team to spread word in the right circles that Ryan's shop was now under protection. The message was clear. Anyone coming after Ryan or Claire would face consequences. "Victor won't ignore this," Lucas said confidently. "He'll come. And when he does, we'll be ready." I couldn't help but question the wisdom of provoking someone as dangerous as Victor, but Lucas's calm, calculated demeanor was hard to argue with. He wasn't just protecting his sister. He was sending a message that no one messed with his family. "Are you sure this is the best way?" I asked, my voice tinged with doubt. Lucas smirked. "Trust me, Ryan. I don't lose." The next few days passed in a tense, uneasy silence. James and his partner remained stationed at the shop, their sharp eyes scanning everyone who walked by. Claire stayed close, though the guilt of dragging me into her problems weighed heavily on her. "You didn't have to get involved, you know," she said one evening as we sat in the back room. I shrugged, trying to play it off. What was I supposed to do? Just walk away? Claire looked at me with a mix of gratitude and sadness. Most people would have. Before I could respond, Lucas walked in, his phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call with a sharp, "Good. Make it happen," and turned to us. "It's time," he said simply. Lucas arranged for a confrontation at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was neutral ground, the kind of place where no one could claim the upper hand. "I'll handle the talking," Lucas said as we piled into the SUV. "Ryan, you just stay back. This isn't your fight." I frowned but nodded. The truth was, I didn't know what I was walking into, but I trusted Lucas enough to follow his lead. The warehouse loomed ahead, its broken windows and rusted walls casting eerie shadows in the moonlight. James and his team spread out, securing the perimeter while Lucas and I stepped inside. Victor was already there, leaning casually against a stack of crates. He was taller than I expected, with sharp features and a cold, calculating gaze. Well, Victor said, his voice smooth. "Lucas Winston. I was wondering when you'd show up." Lucas didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You've been harassing my sister and my associate. That ends tonight." Victor raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Harassing? That's a strong word. I've simply been trying to collect what's owed." "Claire doesn't owe you anything," Lucas shot back, his tone ice cold. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "She walked out on a deal. That doesn't just go away. And now you've involved someone else in this mess." He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "You should have stayed out of it, kid." My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent, letting Lucas take the lead. Lucas stepped closer, his presence commanding. "You'll leave them both alone. If you don't, you'll find out just how bad of an idea it is to cross me." Victor chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You've got guts, Winston. I'll give you that. But threats won't work on me." Before Lucas could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. More of Victor's men appeared, their imposing figures filling the space. Lucas didn't flinch. "You're making a mistake, Victor." Victor smirked, clearly enjoying the upper hand. "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I've got the advantage." But Lucas remained calm, his confidence unshaken. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about Claire or Ryan. You crossed a line when you made it personal." With a snap of his fingers, James and his team appeared from the shadows, their weapons drawn and their expressions deadly serious. Victor's smirk faltered. "You think you can intimidate me?" Lucas's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "No, I think I can end this." Tension crackled in the air as both sides stood at a stalemate. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched, every muscle in my body taut with anticipation. Victor's men shifted uncomfortably, clearly outmatched by the professionalism of Lucas's team. Even Victor seemed to realize he was losing control of the situation. Lucas stepped forward, his gaze locked on Victor. "This is how it's going to go. You'll walk away and leave my family alone. Or we'll make sure you can't." For a moment, Victor looked like he might call Lucas's bluff. But then he glanced around, taking in the grim determination on every face. Slowly, he raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Fine," he said, his voice dripping with reluctance. "You win, Winston. For now." Victor's retreat felt like a weight lifting off my chest, but the look on Lucas's face told me this wasn't over. Victor might have backed down for now, but the lingering threat of his return was like a shadow over all of us. Lucas turned to James. "Keep an eye on his movements. If Victor so much as breathes in their direction again, I want to know." James nodded, his jaw set with determination. Claire stepped forward, her eyes filled with gratitude and guilt. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." Lucas pulled her into a brief, protective hug. "You made mistakes, Claire. But you're my sister, and no one threatens my family." The days that followed were quiet, but not peaceful. Lucas had James and his team stationed near my shop around the clock, ensuring there was no retaliation from Victor. Despite the tension, business picked up, and for the first time in months, the shop wasn't struggling to stay afloat. Claire stayed close, helping out in the shop and insisting on paying for supplies as a way to make up for what happened. Though she was trying to move forward, the fear in her eyes hadn't completely faded. One evening, Lucas stopped by, his usual confident demeanor replaced with something softer. He walked through the shop, his sharp eyes taking in the shelves, the worn counter, and the faint smell of fresh coffee. "You've got a good thing here, Ryan," he said, his voice thoughtful. "Trying to, at least," I replied with a faint smile. He nodded, then pulled out a folder and set it on the counter. "You've done a lot for my family. It's time I returned the favor." I opened the folder and stared, my heart skipping a beat. Inside were documents transferring ownership of a larger storefront in a prime location, along with a check that could pay off my debts 10 times over. "Lucas, I can't accept this," I stammered, my mind reeling. "You can and you will," he said firmly. "You risked everything for Claire. You didn't have to, but you did. That's the kind of person I want in my corner." With Lucas's help, the transition was seamless. The new shop was everything I'd ever dreamed of: spacious, modern, and located in a bustling part of the city. Business boomed almost immediately, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. Claire stayed on to help with the shop, insisting it was the least she could do. Her presence brought a sense of normalcy, and over time, the fear in her eyes faded, replaced by a quiet strength. Just as things seemed to settle, James called me late one night. "We've got movement," he said grimly. "Victor's been spotted back in town." The news sent a chill down my spine. Lucas had warned me that Victor wouldn't give up easily, and now it seemed the storm was brewing once again. Lucas wasted no time. He called a meeting, his sharp mind already crafting a plan. "Victor thinks he can intimidate us," he said, his tone cold. "But this time we'll end it for good." The plan was simple but effective. Using information James had gathered, Lucas arranged to expose Victor's illegal operations to the authorities. It was a bold move, one that required precision and secrecy. On a cold, rainy night, Lucas's plan went into action. Using planted evidence and a tip-off to law enforcement, Victor's operation was raided. The sound of sirens filled the air as officers swarmed the location, arresting Victor and his men. Lucas watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. When it was over, he turned to me and said, "This is the end of the road for him." With Victor out of the picture, life returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after everything that had happened. The shop flourished, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Lucas remained a part of my life, though his visits were less frequent. Claire, on the other hand, became like family. Her gratitude for what I'd done never wavered, and we built a friendship that felt unshakable. One evening, as I stood in the shop watching the bustling street outside, Claire approached me. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Regret what?" I asked, turning to her. "Getting involved," she said. "Putting yourself in danger for someone you didn't even know." I shook my head, a small smile tugging at my lips. Not for a second. It led to all of this. And more than that, it showed me what I'm capable of when it matters most. Word of what happened spread, though most of the details remained under wraps. Customers often asked about Lucas, intrigued by his mysterious presence, while others praised the transformation of the shop. But for me, it wasn't about the recognition or the success. It was about the people I'd met along the way: Claire, Lucas, and even James. They taught me that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, has a way of coming back around. As I turned off the lights and locked up the shop one evening, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't known before. Life had thrown challenges my way, but for the first time, I felt ready for whatever came next.